Hey, gang. Welcome to another episode of the Power of Nine podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Eggert. Today's guest is farm raised and is using that work ethic to bring the future of business banking to the Twin Cities. Let's dig into all that and more with my guest, Melissa Johnston. Melissa, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Aaron. Thanks for having me on the show today. I'm an avid listener. I was really looking forward to you putting this out into the world, and I'm pleased to be one of your interviewees.
Yeah, I know. I'm so pumped. You are the most. You do the most commenting and like liking of my LinkedIn stuff of all the Power of Nine podcast stuff. So I really, really appreciate that. And to have you on means a lot to me.
Awesome. The feeling is mutual. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, we met a few years ago at a open house for a general contractor here in the Twin Cities, and then you were very sneaky about like stalking me out.
It's funny you're saying
LinkedIn.
Sneaky. It's funny you're saying sneaky because I thought it was pretty direct. I mean, it was just like, what's happening?
I love it. It was so good. It was like you came in the back door on LinkedIn and I loved it. You commented on something and like, how are we going to figure this out? And we connected like a week later and we've been kind of buddies. Like we're texting buddies and stuff like that.
Right.
I love it. You're great. And so thank you for taking the initiative to get to know each other via LinkedIn.
Absolutely. I could tell by our mutual connections that you were good stuff. So I just knew I had to be a part of whatever you were building.
Yeah, the feeling is mutual. Virtual high five there. So I'm going to jump right into this. I like talking a little bit about everyone's upbringing. Yours is a little bit more near and dear to my heart because you actually grew up on a working farm. I live in farm country. I have a hobby farm, which is very different than an actual working farm. So I alluded to the fact that you were farm raised. Talk a little bit about your upbringing and how that kind of shaped you.
Sure. Yeah. So being raised on a farm definitely had a tremendous positive impact on my life. Even though I live in the Twin Cities metropolitan area now, I am extremely grateful for how I was raised and try to emulate some of those facets into how I'm raising my kids now, which is what we chatted about this morning. My boys are currently doing chores around the house.
Yeah, I love it.
It's harder when you're in the city to find things that can give kids meaning and purpose like they did for me at a very early age. I mean, I just always felt like I was part of something bigger than just myself. We had chores, we had to go out and water the pigs and feed the pigs and sort them, make sure the little pigs weren't getting trampled by the big pigs and separate the males and the females. And, we just worked together as a family, my mom included. I mean, the jobs we had were never differentiated based on gender, which at the time meant nothing to me, but now looking back on it, I've never been afraid. I mean, look at yesterday, there was 9 of us in a room and I'm the only female. I've never been afraid of being the only female in a group. And I think that's also attributed to the farm life. My mom drove trucks and moved pigs and power washed, just like me and the other hired hands did and my 2 sisters. So I think that is interesting. And, farming communities, this is a bias, of course, I feel like they really take care of each other. That I have developed that sense of community based on that, my farming upbringing. So, I mean, this whole episode could be devoted to farm life, but
that wouldn't break my heart.
That's awesome. But the bottom line is, I really appreciate it. I feel like I have a healthy relationship and understanding of the circle of life. I mean, it's different when you're raising livestock. You just gain that perspective, and then the whole food production aspect and caring for the environment. I mean, we are really good about being good stewards. I mean, my husband's an environmental engineer, so clearly I was attracted to that type as well.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that, you're just really mindful of that when you're on the farm, and reducing, reusing, recycling, and just being thoughtful about nature.
Do you
Mhm.
do you think that there are a lot of the same dynamics between like farm culture, family culture, and business culture?
I do. I really do, especially small business. I mean, you just see it over and over again where small business owners and their teams want to have relationships. They know that having a banker, an attorney, an accountant, someone that they can have a relationship with can be a true value and asset to them. And I mean, my dad was the same way. He had, his banker would come over for coffee and cookies. His feed vendors would come over, and they knew all of us kids came to our graduations.
Hmm.
It was that same relationship with the veterinarian and up at the co-op. I mean, it would take half a day to go uptown. Not because it was, I mean, there's only 1,500 people, but every conversation was over an hour long
Right.
because it was, he had those relationships. And frankly, that's why I've stayed, even though I feel like I've wanted to do more and be more in terms of being challenged. I've always wanted to stay in the community banking
Hmm.
world because I just deeply value those relationships and wanting to get to know people, their businesses much more deeply.
Hmm.
It's not about a transaction for me. It's really making a difference in people's lives and understanding what they're going through.
Hmm. What was your favorite? What was your favorite and least favorite chore?
Oh my gosh, I still think about this. Thank you for asking. My least favorite chore was power washing. And when I explain to my kids what power washing is, like they can't grasp it. I ask them to
Yeah.
hose off the vehicle and they'll be like wincing because, there's bird poop on it. And I'm like, do you understand that mom actually had to spray down manure in the
Right.
building? Like I'd be covered in a rain suit and like goggles, and it's just like it's I can't even describe how gross it
Well,
is.
it
It's
sounds
not just
graphic.
manure. It's
Yeah.
not just manure either. And so yeah, that was definitely the worst job. And back then we didn't have wireless headphones or anything. It would just be me in this building with a power washer for hours after
Right.
we emptied a pen. And it was really important to make sure that the pen was clean for the next set of pigs coming in. So I knew that I was doing something important, but oh my gosh, it was so boring. Talk
Right.
about introspection. That's probably why I love all those tests about figuring out how people are wired and how I'm wired, because I had all these opportunities as a kid to do introspection. Favorite chore was probably when we used to have a bean bar. So
Explain that.
walking beans,
Yeah.
yeah, walking beans evolved to a bean bar. So we used to have to like literally take a hoe and walk through the fields and hoe out the weeds. So
Wow.
this was like all summer long, right? All the 2,000 acres that my dad rented or owned, or that we helped out with other farmers.
Hmm.
But that evolved to a bean bar where you would sit in this like motorized um, piece of equipment, and the tractor would pull us, and there'd be like five of us sitting on this bean bar, and we'd have like little sprayers with um, chemicals where we would actually like spray the weeds instead of hoeing
Jeez.
them out.
Yeah.
And that was super fun. I was kind of dangerous. I mean, you think about having young kids with chemical wands, spraying weeds. But it was super fun. And then that evolved to then the sprayer now being able to do it without any labor attached to it.
Right.
The sprayer just goes in the field with one driver and can spray the field out pretty quickly. But that was fun, especially when my grandpa drove the tractor because we took lots of breaks.
You played a lot of athletics too, right? Like you're a sports nut. And I saw something, you've mentioned this, but I guess I didn't really absorb it until I was doing a little bit of show prep, but you're not a softball coach, you're a baseball coach. And
Correct.
that I love that.
Hmm.
Like that is next
Thank you.
level awesome. And so what's your passion behind that?
Yeah, so I grew up playing fast pitch softball. My dad played baseball and is really good at it. He still is, even though he's in his mid 60s. He's a really good athlete
Hmm.
and baseball player, pitcher, hitter. So I was his oldest child, and early on played t-ball, loved it, could throw a softball farther than the boys in my class during track and field,
Hmm.
and could hit the ball. And so loved playing t-ball. Then it evolved into fast pitch, and my dad wanted me to give pitching a try when I was 8, and that was a lot of fun. So he worked with me on becoming a fast pitch pitcher, hired a pitching coach for me. And yeah, so I loved pitching and ended up getting a scholarship to a full ride scholarship to play at a Division II level, and loved it. Then my first two boys, or my twin boys, they ended up wanting to play baseball.
Hmm.
And so I coached them and just kind of kept with it. And so now they're 12, they're on a 12 and under tournament team. And I've been coaching that same group of kids since they were 9,
Wow.
and coaching baseball in general since they were 4. But oh man, that group of kids, they're 4 years that we've been playing together, and those families, we just have so much fun. And yeah, we're having a good season so far. And it's funny because I just asked my husband the other day, because I mean, tournament after tournament, we see very few. I don't know if I think I've seen one female coach and no head coaches out on the baseball field. I see it a little bit more in basketball, where I'm the head coach of their basketball team. But I asked my husband just like this last weekend after our tournament where we got second place down in Eden Prairie. I said, what do you think people think? Like when we play them and they see that there's a female head coach, like, what do you think? And he's like, honestly, Melissa, I think they undermine us at first.
Hmm.
He's like, I think that they have some bias. And then we come out, we hit the ball, we make plays, and I think they're kind of like, oh, wow, she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah.
So
I
it's kind
actually,
of fun.
I almost would I'd almost challenge that mindset a little bit. Like if that was me and I saw you on the other sideline and I didn't know you, I would think to myself, okay, there's a reason why you're there. Right. Like,
True.
right. Like there's some skill that's going to be a part of this. Who cares? I could give a shit about gender. Like like to me, it's like, there's something there. If you're standing across on the other sideline, calling the shots.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to think that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for
And
sure.
it's kind of interesting too, because the umps will go over to one of my assistant coaches to have the meeting, or the other team will come over looking for the head coach, and they're all like, no, our head coach is over there.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
She is our head coach. And so
Yeah,
that
good.
feels kind of good too. Like and
Heck
I
yeah.
love that. It doesn't matter. You can be
Nope.
a good baseball coach even though you're a female. Like
Yeah,
it's
for
all
sure.
good.
Yeah. So you alluded to the fact that you took a full ride. So you went to South Dakota State University, SDSU.
Yep.
And were you the type of person that was, I think I know what you're going to say, but I'm going to have you say it, is you went to school for athletics and you just happened to get an education, or you went and you were excited about getting an education, you just happened to play athletics?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And what Laura King said really resonated with me, in the fact that she was super focused on her grades.
Mm-hmm.
I was too. I finished second in my class. Granted, there was only 115 students, but grades were always really important to me. And I was looking for a college. So when I set out to go to undergrad, I was looking at engineering or computer science. And so I wanted a decent softball program, and then a program that excelled in engineering or computer science. And there wasn't a whole lot of choices within the region that would offer me a scholarship. These D3 colleges were good. St. Thomas, Augustana, Carleton. I looked at all of them, but the price tag was just not affordable for me. My parents put it on me to figure out how to pay for college. And I toured South Dakota State. I did my recruiting visit and just had a phenomenal time, was really impressed by their engineering program. And then they made the decision easy from a economic standpoint, helping me out that way. And so, yeah, it was definitely a combination, but I did put thoughts around my degree first. And then I will say I changed my mind like 80% of people do. My sophomore year of college, I decided I didn't want to be in computer science or engineering. I was really interested in finance, and South Dakota State didn't have a finance major at that time. They're D1 now, so they do, but they didn't. And I thought about transferring, but fast pitch kept me at South Dakota State. So I changed my degree to math with business and economics minors. And that was as close as I could get to finance.
Is that what drove you to then go get your MBA?
It did. Yep.
Yeah.
I took some finance classes at South Dakota State, but they didn't have the breadth that I wanted. And so, so my MBA was critical for that. And it turns out the classes that benefited me more in my MBA program were actually marketing, communications, and things I had no interest in, but really needed to know without knowing that I needed them.
Right. So after you got done getting your MBA, you went to Carlson. What was your first gig out of college?
Yeah, so I did the MBA program part-time. And so I right out of college, I mean, I still had a month and a half or so left in school, and I knew I was going to Midwest Corporation. They hired me. So that was a bank holding company, and I worked there while I was getting my MBA. So I stayed at Midwest, which then I transitioned to Midwest Bank, one of the banks that they owned. I stayed there for almost 10 years. And then I went over to Highland Bank for almost 10 years as well. Yeah.
I was looking at your LinkedIn. You didn't jump around like some people, they do some jumping around. You were really stable. And was it, so when you made the decision while you were probably in your undergrad, was it always going to be banking that you were going to use finance for, or did you have other stuff floating around in your head?
Yeah, I had other stuff floating around, and I talked with a career advisor, which I would highly recommend while you're in college to talk with a career advisor. And I did that. I loved math, the logic and the trends of math. I mean, I think really logically, and math always came easy to me. So I thought about actuarial science, and I actually took the pre-actuarial science exam, and my career advisor talked me out of it and just said, I can really tell that you get energy from people and you're going to want to be around people. Actuarial science is really a behind the scenes type of role. I encourage you to really think through this. And that was good advice, because I think I know I would have been bored. I mean, I was a credit analyst at the bank for a short time and not interacting with clients, and it was extremely boring for me. So
you're a high relationship person.
I'm high relationship and get energy from people. And so banking was really sensible for me, because I got to use my math, business, economics, finance, and also develop relationships and talk with people and understand them. And so, so I took some money and banking classes and commercial bank management, credit analysis classes in college. And there was an adjunct professor there from Fishback Financial Corporation, who I'm still in touch with to this day.
Cool.
He's part of a venture capital firm and a bank holding company. And he inspired me. He said, I talked with him before and after classes and just in general about banking, and I was super interested in it. And he thought it would be a good fit for me. And clearly it is and was.
Yeah, I didn't really understand the power of the relationship with a business banker until I became a business owner.
Oh,
And,
sure.
that to me is, I think, one thing people just don't think about. So I'm going to ask you kind of a double prong question, and they go together. So
Sure.
First, talk to me about in your opinion, what is the role of a business banker, and what does a good business banker do to help an entrepreneur or a business owner?
Yeah, I think the role of a business banker is really understanding the business that your clients are in, and then your clients, their goals, and what they're trying to achieve, and really helping them with the opportunities that come about to help them with their goals and to navigate challenges. I mean, they're going to see both over their business life cycle, perhaps even within the same year. And so I really feel like the banker is there to anticipate their clients' needs and help them through things. I mean, sometimes a client would bring up to me, I think I need a line of credit. It's like, okay, well, let's talk about that. Let's look at the financials. Have you put together a cash flow projection? It's really digging in deeply to say, what are the cash needs? What are the demands? And what are your goals? I mean, people will come to me and say, I don't know if I should finance this or buy it with cash. And it's like, okay, well, let's look at your forecast. How much are you looking to grow? How much cash do you need to save on hand? What's your seasonality? I mean, it's truly understanding the business. And I think some bankers do, and some bankers really do a disservice to their clients because they just take orders. I mean, their clients say, I want an equipment loan. And the banker looks at it and says, okay, checks all the boxes, you qualify. Here's your loan, here's your rate. Let's schedule the closing. Where it's like, okay, I like to go back to the drawing board, clean slate. Let's truly figure it out. What's the structure that makes the most sense based on what you're trying to do, and what you think you might need may be right, or we may not have all the facts, and there may be a term loan or a different type of facility that could help you even better and more than what you think you might need on the onset. And so that was one part of the question. I'm trying to remember that.
Well, I didn't ask the second part. So,
okay.
And let me just comment on what you just said there. So my personal opinion is that as a business owner, you're part of the big three, right? And so of advisors. So it's the business banker, it's the CPA, and it's the attorney. And with those three people's guidance, that's going to help the financial side of the business and obviously the legal side as well. But I do think that tight relationship with that individual is really, really hyper important, which kind of segues into my second part of my question, is the reason you chose commercial or community banking versus corporate banking is very specific, and you're very passionate about that. And we'll dig into that more as we get into your future. But why did you choose community banking, and what do you think that the advantages are of that over a corporate bank?
Sure. I think that small business owners really need a champion. I think that someone, like I said, someone that can help them. And I realized this, 2008 through 2011, where things were changing. Within the hour, a sales order that a client thought they had fell apart. It was a very stressful time for all of my clients, and being there for them and understanding their business and sitting down with them and talking through that, I could take their story and their numbers and present to loan committee what I recommended and just really help them through that versus, all these horror stories from a lot of big banks where their clients got into trouble and they had 60 days to pay off the loan. The community banks just have a different approach to navigating challenges. They don't have the black and white, stock price shareholder situation that small banks do. And not to say that bankers at big banks aren't wonderful people. My experience, and this could be somewhat of a stereotype, but in talking with people, my experience is that if you're a small business owner, it comes down to numbers and patterns, and who you are and what your story is less important than at a small community bank, business focused bank. And so we can just make different types of decisions, and we still want to have financial covenants and conditions, and we still want our clients to perform financially. There's a different level of trust, and there's different opportunities to help and to be a resource, and to have the loan be on interest only, or to put some payments on the back of the loan, or to just just help them in a little bit more heroic way than a big bank could. I like having a voice, and I've had good, I've leaned on my intuition my whole life. I've had good fortune, good luck with my intuition in making good decisions. And I expect the leadership of the bank to trust me that I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not perfect. I definitely have made judgment mistakes, and loans have had to be written off. But it's very few. I mean, my loan loss reserve has been good because I've been able to read a situation, help people through it, and then also provide guidance on how they can help themselves. Are you talking to vendors? What are you doing to cut expenses? How about your personal life? I'm very direct, and I think people, for the most part, appreciate that. Whereas, we need to have all the facts. You need to be transparent with me. And that's what I love about community banks. And I feel like if I went to a big bank, and I don't know this because I've never been there,
Yeah.
it's all
Yeah.
through stories. I feel like if I was at a big bank, I would be forced to make a decision that I didn't believe in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't want to ever be in that spot.
And now, I'll segue into what I think is the most exciting part about all of this is that you've spent your career helping entrepreneurs, and now you are going to be an entrepreneur yourself. But what you said to me yesterday when we were having a brief conversation after our Coalition 9 session is you're starting a bank. You're a co-founder of a bank, and it's the first time in I think 15 years in the region that a new bank has been started in this area. Like, that is insane to me. And we could talk for another hour about that, but let's talk about two things. One is, why did you make the decision to start your own bank and take this massive leap? Because there's so much like red tape to work through and all these other type of things that you need to get approval on. And then what is this process like, just like a high level of
Sure.
that? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about what we have brewing right now. Myself and 3 other executives are working on putting together a plan to open a new bank.
Sweet.
It is quite a process, and there is a lot of regulatory insight. I will say that it's appropriate. We are going through the steps. We had a big meeting yesterday with the regulators, and I support what they're doing in terms of making sure that a new bank is open and will and also having the capital and the plan to be successful. We don't want to be giving anyone FDIC insurance to open a bank. I mean, it is an extensive process, but I support it. We may have a different timeline than the regulators, and we may want it to go more quickly than their time will and their day will allow. But at the end of the day, I support what they're doing. So I'll put that out there. And yeah, so I was inspired by a private investor who approached me and told me what he was looking at doing. And at first I thought it seemed like too high of a mountain to climb.
Right.
And I just said, I'm really happy. I'm secure. I'm comfortable. I'm supported. Highland Bank has done everything that I've wanted them to do, and I have no reason to leave. And it was a good conversation, but his vision was magnetizing to the fact that I couldn't get it out of my mind. And then I read Glennon Doyle's book, where she asked you to picture the truest, most beautiful story about your career. And I got like almost sick to my stomach. Like, is what I'm doing the truest, most beautiful story about my career? Am I leaving something on the table? Could I be doing more than what I'm doing? And I knew the answer was yes. I knew that I could contribute at a higher level, and that there was more for me in the world than what I was doing, even though I was content. And so I agreed to have a follow-up meeting with this investor who's putting the plan together, and it went really well. And then just, yeah, continued having conversations, and our spouses got introduced, and then he introduced me to the other two people he wanted on the team. And like I said, the vision was inspiring and impactful, but ultimately it was the four individuals that really got me convinced that this is a good decision, and we're going to be successful.
I love it. It's so inspiring. And so talk to me a little bit about what does the short-term future hold for you? And then what is the vision for the bank?
Yeah. So I will be extra careful in saying, we are not a bank yet. We're a bank
Okay,
holding
thank you.
company. And
Yeah.
yes, and we have to go through the extensive regulatory process to get approved. It's going well. We're receiving enthusiasm from the regulators. We have to get approval from the Department of Commerce, which is the state, and the FDIC and the Federal Reserve. And it is a process. There's a pre-approval, and then there's a final formal approval, which we hope will happen later this year. And that might be a new word, hoping.
Yeah, I was actually liking that one. Let's stick with that. We're
right?
hoping. Yeah.
Yes. And then in January, sometime January through April is when we're anticipating being open pending approval. And so what our goal for this new bank, like you said, there hasn't been a de novo bank application in the region in the past 14 years. So we're excited to be doing something new. And really what we all have is a sense of urgency in terms of entrepreneurs. They want answers, and frankly, they want them yesterday. I mean, when they come to us, they have already put the decision off. It's time to move. And so we plan to hire people that have that sense of urgency. The four of us have it. And we just want to be able to provide answers to people, even if it's no, even if it's, this is outside of our risk profile, but here's some resources that could help you. We don't plan on dragging things out 3 to 4 weeks to get an answer to people. So, and then again, just going back to relationships, we intend on developing relationships, being there for people, and being creative, focusing on structure. And frankly, there's been 25 banks purchased in Minnesota in the past 10 years. So in the last 10 years, we've lost 25 of our community and or regional banks. And so business owners have less and less options in terms of those business focused community banks. Even though there's a lot of banks, we think that there's still a need for those banks that can respond to small business owners.
Yeah, good for you. I think it's an awesome vision. I can't think of a better person to be part of the team leading the charge. If you're partners or anything like you, then I see nothing but success. So I'm so happy for you. You shared that with me not long ago, and I'm so happy for you. This is such a great endeavor for you.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm thrilled too. And the chemistry that we have, it just blows me out of the water. People, partners, potential vendors that talk with us, they're like, wow, I can't believe you guys just started working together this year. You act like you've been working together for 4 years. I mean,
sweet.
We joke around, we have fun. We're not afraid of conflict. If we don't agree on something, we'll bring it up and talk through it. And it's a really healthy environment. And I'm just out of my mind excited.
Sweet. Good. Yeah, you should be. I'm pumped for you. All right. We're gonna hard transition into 9 questions. Are you ready?
Ready or not, I don't think I have a choice for this. This is the hardest part for me.
I know you, for our listeners, Melissa was trying to shake me down to get an insight into what I was going to ask her, and made sure that there were certain things I stayed away from, and was very, very selective in the things that I could talk about. And I just said, don't worry about it. And it's none of your business. So do you confirm that I did not share any of these questions with you in advance?
Sadly, yes.
All right, good. All right, we're gonna dig right in. Melissa, question number 1: what is your biggest pet peeve?
Biggest pet peeve is when people don't try their hardest. They just give less than their best effort. It's really frustrating.
And you can tell, right? Like even if they
Mm-hmm.
say that they're trying hard, it's like that part of your brain that just that guides your gut feeling. You just know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not about me. It's really about them. Like, I know you can do better. Like, I
Yeah.
believe in you. I know
Yeah.
you can try harder. And it's just, yeah, that frustrates me because I feel like people find joy in doing their best and being their best. And so it makes me sad. It really bothers me when people don't try.
Yeah. That's a good one. That knowing your personality, that doesn't surprise me either. So that's a good one. What is the strangest thing that you've ever eaten?
Oh, strangest thing I ever eaten. My son, when we were in Fargo, he ordered a rattlesnake brat,
Oof.
and I didn't. I he ordered it, but I had to at least try a bite. Like, what is this? He ate the whole thing. In fact, it was a jalapeno rattlesnake brat at some brewery in Fargo, and I had a bite, and it was definitely strange.
Yeah.
And I
I've
see
had
why they spiced it up a bit.
I've had rattlesnake before. It's a weird texture. It's really chewy and stuff, and it looks like fish.
Yes, it was
Weird.
bizarro.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've had that once too, and it was disgusting. When when I say the word leader, who do you immediately think of, and why?
Brene Brown, because of her topics and interest in vulnerability.
Awesome, awesome. I'm a huge fan of her podcast and her books. She's great.
Mm-hmm.
What are 3 words that describe you?
Responsible, ambitious, organized.
Shocker. All the things that frustrated you about the fact I wouldn't share the 9 questions with you in advance.
Precisely.
Very nice. I love it. I love it. What is one thing most people would not know about you?
Most people wouldn't know that I'm close to getting my 2nd degree in Taekwondo, 2nd degree black belt.
Nice. Is it just you, or is anybody else taking that journey with you?
My husband and sons are on the journey with me. Yep.
Jeez.
We all got our black belt in 2019 and we're working on our 2nd degree.
That's a hardcore commitment, not only physically, but mentally.
Massive. I couldn't believe it. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Well, this will transition. So that is both a physical and mental, but what is your superpower?
Telling time. It drives my kids crazy. I don't wear a watch.
What do you use, the sun?
I think so. Growing up on a farm, maybe, but I always know what time it is. Like sometimes it's within the minute, which is really weird, but it's usually within like 5 or 10 minutes. I always know what time it is.
Holy smokes. That is an awesome answer. I'm going to test you on that one in the future. I'm going to ask you in the middle of a meeting, like what time it is, and you probably will nail it. So let's mess around with that a little bit. I like that. Oh, that's a good one. If you could be any animal, what animal would you be and why?
Probably. Oh boy, that's a really good one. Maybe a tiger. Because I'm protective and fierce.
Yeah, I like it. You pulled that up pretty good. That you weren't prepared for that at all, and it aligns well with the 3 words that describe you. So well done. What is one thing that keeps you driven?
Being a good example for my kids.
That's a great answer. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and they're more and more interested in what I'm doing and what is keeping me busy, because of this entrepreneurial journey I'm on now. And it was fascinating the other day. My boys had been out all day on their bikes and I'm in my room, the door was open and I was reading the Wall Street Journal, and my twin boys are 12 and he comes upstairs, "What you reading, Mom?" And I told him some article about China and the Tesla, and he's like, "I'm gonna go to the bathroom then. Can you tell me about it?"
That's
and so
interesting.
it's just, yeah, it's like if I'm having a moment where I'm just maybe not as motivated as I want to be, I think about them and being a good example.
Yeah, that's great. What is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
The best piece of advice was not to grieve the future. You'll have enough loss when you get there.
Huh. Yeah.
And that was when I had a daughter that was on hospice. And the social worker said to me, because I was just a wreck, she said, just enjoy every moment with your child. There'll be enough grief for you when you get there. And I thought about that with our dog when she started getting sick. You know, my grandmas are older now. And so to just not be sad, you know, to just live in the moment and be present. And that has had a profound impact because I'm such a planner. You know, it's like you try to like, let's feel some of this loss right now so that it's not as hard. And that makes it worse because then you'll look, and she told me this, she said, you'll look back and regret that you didn't spend more time, that you weren't more present and you didn't enjoy every moment. And so I think about that with a lot of things. I mean, even like my last day at Highland Bank, my kids were like all worried about me. They're like, Mom, are you going to cry? And I said, I'm going to get through the day. It's going to be fine. And I'm just going to enjoy my team and enjoy the time. And I thought about that quote again, to just live in the moment, enjoy it. Like you can cry tonight when you go home.
Right. Be present. Right. We even talked about that a little bit that yesterday in our Coalition 9 session about just being there. Right. And being mindful. And I think that's so hard for anybody. And the quote that you used and that piece of advice aligns so well with that. And I appreciate you sharing that. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Melissa, can you please share with everybody where people can find you? And you're very easy to find in some respects if you search, but let's do this so we can make sure everybody knows where to find you, and then I'll put it in the show notes.
Yes, great. So I am loving the fact that I'm not getting emails right now. So I'm not sharing my email address at the moment, but the best way to find me is LinkedIn. And we can put a link to that in the show notes. And then I do check my LinkedIn messages and I get back to people there. But my emails at my old, my prior bank became sort of a black hole after a while. So LinkedIn is the best way.
All right. And LinkedIn's always got messaging and stuff like that. So people can find it easy there. And you do have an outstanding personal brand, which is going to drive the future for your new bank as you start to build that. So I don't doubt for a second that you're going to be easier and easier to find as you start to build that up.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron.
Well, Melissa, it's been so great getting to know you. I love being able to share your story with our listeners. You've become a good friend of mine very, very quickly here. And I can't thank you enough for being on the show.
Thank you. And thanks for having me. This was a blast, like I knew it would be. Thanks for all the good you're putting out there for the Coalition 9 community. I've really enjoyed getting to know you and I appreciate you, Aaron.
Thank you so much. And because I like you so much, I took it easy on the 9 questions.
Thank you for that.
All right. On behalf of Melissa Johnston, this has been the Power of 9 podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Eggert, and I want to thank you for the privilege of your time.